You'd think it was dead, forgotten. Just another cautionary tale from the ruins of British industry. Ask anyone what happened to British Leyland and they'll rattle off the usual: strikes, rust, rubbish build quality, and collapse. And sure, the badge might be gone, but British Leyland, it never really died. It just slipped into the shadows, quietly, bit by bit, factory by factory, brand by brand, and somehow, unbelievably, it's still alive today. Back in the 1970s, Leyland was a mess of good intentions and political panic. The government panicked when it saw the collapse of dozens of separate British car and truck brands, and instead of letting the market shake itself out, it glued the lot together. Austin, Morris, Triumph, Rover, MG, Jaguar, Land Rover, even truck makers like Scammell and AEC, all shoved under one roof. The goal was to build a national champion, but instead of one strong company, what they got was a bloated, confused octopus of competing brands and union clashes. Cars overlapped, factories fought for funding, engineering teams ignored each other, and at the top, politicians and bureaucrats with no clue how to run an automaker. But within that chaos were some world-class machines. Think about it: the original Mini, the Range Rover, the Jaguar XJ, the Rover SD1, trucks like the Leyland Marathon. These weren't pipe dreams, these were real vehicles, loved by real drivers and built with proper British character when the stars aligned. And then, as the 80s rolled in, the walls caved in. British Leyland as a brand name started vanishing from badges. Piece by piece, the government sold off the carcass. Most people reckon that's where the story ends, but it's actually where it gets interesting, because some of those pieces, they didn't vanish. They survived, just under new names, new owners, new shells. Take Leyland Trucks. Everyone assumes it died off when the lorry division got split from the car brands, but that factory up in Lancashire, it's still running, still churning out proper heavy-duty vehicles. You know those sleek, modern DAF trucks you see flying up the M6? Built right there in the old Leyland plant. After the merger with the Dutch and later buyout by American giant Packer, the British operation didn't just hang on, it became one of the most high-tech truck plants in Europe. What once built Bedford rivals and army tank haulers is now leading the way in lean, automated production. The line workers might not wear Leyland overalls anymore, but they're building trucks on the same floorboards. And what about the car side? Jaguar and Land Rover got bundled off to Ford in the 90s and then scooped up by Tata in the 2000s. And look at them now. Land Rover's a global luxury name. Jaguar's holding on with electric dreams. You might not see a Leyland badge anywhere, but their design roots, the platforms, even the engineering bloodlines, they're all straight from that British Leyland family tree. And here's a strange one for you. MG, once a sports car darling, fell off a cliff in the early 2000s. But then, back it came. With Chinese money, SAIC Motors swooped in and grabbed the rights, and suddenly you've got electric MGs rolling down British roads again. Sure, they're not made in Abingdon anymore, but that badge still taps into something recognizable. And people are buying them, because the name still means something. That's Leyland DNA, like it or not. Even on the fringes, the stuff no one really talks about, you find Leyland's shadow. Remember the Leyland National Bus? Boxy, loud, indestructible, its influence is still baked into modern British buses. The current king of UK bus building, Alexander Dennis, carries the technical spirit of those Leyland platforms, even if the badge never returned. And the engineers? Many of them stayed on through the transitions. Same brains, just with different payslips. And then there's Rover. Oh, poor Rover. It became the punchline of every late 90s car joke, and when the brand finally went bust in 2005, everyone assumed it was a mercy killing, but parts of it were bought by the Chinese. The Rowe brand was born, and if you dig into the blueprints of some modern Rowe saloons, they're basically rebadged Rovers. Again, the badge is gone, but the bones are very much British Leyland. What's mad is this: British Leyland was supposed to be the dream, a unified British auto industry. But the reality turned out to be stranger. Leyland only survived by falling apart. Each piece got a second life. Some as premium global brands, some as budget Chinese EVs, some just kept making trucks in the rain. But they all lived on, not because of brilliant management or flawless engineering. They survived because the foundation was stronger than anyone gave it credit for. The plants were solid, the engineers were clever, the drivers were loyal, and the brands, as battered as they were, still meant something to people. The bones were British, but over time they got dressed up in new suits. Land Rover, for example. What a comeback. It went from clunky off-roaders in the Leyland days to premium icons under Tata. And that shift wasn't accidental. Tata didn't just buy the badge, they bought the engineering know-how, the factories, the test tracks, and crucially, the soul. Some of the same blokes who worked on the Defender back in the day were still on site when the Evoque came out. Same location, same attitude, just with more polish and better funding. And that's how a rust-riddled corner of British Leyland turned into a global success story. Jaguar's a trickier one. It was always the posh cousin in the Leyland family, classy, but prone to electrical fits. Under Ford, it nearly got swallowed up in badge engineering and blandness. But Tata, again, saw the potential. They kept it British, they poured billions into it. Sure, not every Jag model sold like hotcakes, but they rebuilt the factory at Castle Bromwich. They kept the design center alive. Even now, as the company leans into electric, it's still clinging to that classic Leyland-era ethos. Make it sleek, make it fast, and above all, make it feel like a Jaguar. That DNA is still running strong. And then you've got the real underdog, Leyland Trucks. You wouldn't expect a quiet factory in Lancashire to outlive so many of its famous cousins, but that's exactly what happened. After DAF took over, and later Packard, the name changed, the branding changed, but the trucks kept rolling out. The plant adapted like mad. Today, it's a global benchmark for lean truck manufacturing, and if you walk the floor, you'll still hear old-timers referring to certain tools or processes as Leyland this or Leyland that. It's not nostalgia, it's muscle memory. Those trucks may wear a DAF badge now, but you better believe there's Leyland heritage baked into the steel. Even beyond the factories, British Leyland's influence never really left the UK's roads. Some of the trucks built in the 70s and 80s, road trains, marathons, early constructors, are still dragging equipment across farms, quarries, and backwoods yards. They've outlived 3 generations of cars. And in India, Leyland didn't just survive, it became a giant. Ashok Leyland, the Indian arm that started as a humble joint venture with the British parent company, is now one of the biggest commercial vehicle manufacturers on the continent. The name Leyland still flashes across buses and trucks in Chennai traffic like it never left 1975, but now it's thriving, exporting to Africa, Southeast Asia, the Middle East. If there's a modern success story for the Leyland legacy, it's Ashok. Same philosophy, no nonsense, dependable machines built to take a beating and keep on hauling. And here's the real twist, even though British Leyland collapsed under its own weight, its weird Frankenstein structure may have accidentally ensured its survival. By smashing together so many brands and platforms, it created dozens of exit routes. Some brands were sold, some were licensed, some were retooled, but none were truly erased. Like an old oak tree struck by lightning, the top might fall, but the roots are still alive, sprouting up in the strangest places. You've got MG in London showrooms again, even if it's now electric and made in China. You've got Jaguars still gliding through Kensington in the rain. You've got Land Rovers getting caked in Scottish mud, just like they did 40 years ago. And you've got DAF trucks rolling off a Leyland assembly line, quietly logging thousands of motorway miles while their ancestors sit in vintage hauler shows a few miles away. Even the design language sticks around. Look at the front end of some newer Indian Ashok Leyland trucks. Squint, and you'll see hints of the old Buffalo or Comet grills. Check out the instrument clusters in some MG saloons. Subtle touches that call back to the Rover 75. No one's saying they're as good or as iconic, but the fingerprints are there. That's the magic of Leyland's survival. It's not one big phoenix rising from the ashes, it's embers scattered across the globe, still glowing in unexpected places. Engineers in Pune solving problems the same way lads in Birmingham did in '82. Tooling designs passed on from Scammell lines to Ashok chassis. Digital dashboards now sitting where cracked vinyl once lived. It's like Leyland never really left. It just morphed. British Leyland isn't dead, it just took off the overalls, changed its passport and got on with the job. Whether it's a luxury Jag, a rough and ready Ashok bus or a DAF rolling out of Lancashire, its legacy rumbles on. Quiet, unflashy, but stubborn as ever. It may not say Leyland on the badge, but the spirit's still there, in gears, in bolts, in steel. Long gone from the headlines, never gone from the roads.